Good.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Temple Garden Chambers here in The Hague, where we are today. There are a number of you following online as well, so good afternoon to you. We are gathered because this is a very important day when we have filed a further submission with the International Criminal Court here in The Hague, specifically focused on the dire situation of Black African migrants in Tunisia. We filed a previous submission with the ICC on the 5th of October last year, focusing on the crackdown and repression of political opponents in Tunisia. And we highlighted in that as well the situation facing migrants in the country. Since then, the situation has got much worse for all concerned. And we have been very fortunate enough to be able to gather evidence on the ground firsthand about the situation facing migrants. We have got testimony from a number of people who have been directly affected by the policies of the current government. Those include persons who have been in the camps, the migrant camps in Tunisia, those who have been pushed out and expelled into the desert areas, those who tried to make crossings to escape and get away from the violence, and many other migrants who are caught up in the situation there. We have gathered all of that together to provide to the ICC this first-hand testimony, together with all other material that has been produced in this area. It is then, as you know, for the ICC Prosecutor to decide whether to open an investigation into the situation. We are alleging that the evidence that we have gathered and that is available publicly amounts to crimes against humanity, over which the court does have jurisdiction. Tunisia is a state party. These acts are taking place on its territory. And we are talking about a range of alleged crimes, from murders to torture to mistreatment to rapes to expulsions to inhumane treatment and persecution, which is defined as a specific crime that includes all of those acts, some or all of them, where persons are targeted because of their national origin, identity, and associations. So in our submission, the court certainly has jurisdiction to take this step to investigate this case, to look at both the situation facing migrants in Tunisia, but also, as we've submitted before, the situation facing political opponents, political prisoners, civil society. And to do so with even more urgency now, in light of the escalation of the attacks and violence on migrants, but likewise the clamping down in a far more extensive way on any opposition in Tunisia. This is partly because, as we know, there is a presidential election coming up on the 6th of October, very soon. We'll hear more about that now. But also to try and seek to silence any criticism of what is happening politically, economically, but also in respect of the migrant situation as well. We see a pattern of those who've been speaking out, trying to do something about it. Lawyers have been representing persons targeted as well. So there's a common theme here of persecution against all of those who do not unilaterally support Kais Saied's regime, and using the migrant situation as an excuse to take action, to seek to unite support around the current government and away from anyone who's criticizing it, and distract from the real problems and insecurities in the country. This is why we are saying it's critical now. The ICC hasn't done anything for the last year, but critical now that they do take up this case. We fully understand that the docket of the ICC is very full at the moment, given what is happening in other parts of the world. But what is happening in Tunisia in an ICC state party, we've just recently had a judge elected as well in December of last year to serve on the court, is appalling. And it cannot be right that the ICC simply is able to ignore that on the basis that they have too much other work to do. No police force, no prosecution office in any country would ever get away with that, saying to people, well, we can only look at some evidence, but not all of them, but you just don't have the time and resources. We're urging the ICC to find a way to dedicate resources and energy to investigate what is happening in Tunisia. To go to Tunisia, the ICC is entitled to do that, find out for themselves what is happening there. At least make statements about what is occurring on the ground and warn the perpetrators that either they must cease their activities or there will be investigations and charges that follow where the evidence permits. On that note, we say there's ample evidence in what we have provided previously, but also in what we've given to the prosecution today. We are not making that evidence publicly available. We have provided a summary of it in a press release, and we're here to answer questions about it as far as we can go. But we're not able to identify those who've been involved in gathering the evidence or in the evidence that has itself been gathered, the names of persons and their details. They all expressed great fear to us for their safety. And we have to give assurances that in providing that material to the ICC, it would be kept confidential. And we have filed that confidentially, ready to make any further evidence available to the ICC as needed. We will, of course, make whatever we can public as this goes along, and if we're able to do so, and answer questions as far as we are permitted today. We are very fortunate today to have representatives from the opposition in Tunisia, families of those persons who have been detained, who will talk to you about what is happening to their loved ones, to their families, and reveal, particularly in light of the run-up to the presidential election now, the increasing throttling of the opposition and the punishment of people who are in prison for continuing to challenge their detention. The fact that it's unlawful makes no difference. Continuing to challenge it means that you will be punished. Or speaking out about the presidential elections being unfair, criticizing the fact that candidates have not been able to stand, that the commission that has been looking at that situation has been clamped down on, and also speaking out about the situation in the country as a whole, including the situation facing migrants in Tunisia. We are also very fortunate to have David Yambio here on my right, who has done some amazing sterling work in gathering information about what is happening on the ground and helping people, directly helping people, saving them in a situation to be able to get out and avoid the persecution campaign. And lastly, we will also have some testimonies from some of the people we've spoken to. We can't name them, but we will be playing some excerpts of their accounts. A lot of what we've given the prosecution are audio recorded interviews, because that's been often the safest way of getting it and the most accurate way of getting it, and then providing it to the officer of the prosecutor with details as to where they could then go and speak to persons directly. The last thing I want to say from a legal point of view is that what is significant here is that the officer of the prosecutor has already indicated in the Libya situation that he will be looking at the campaign to target migrants in Libya. And in fact, the deputy prosecutor went to Libya recently and to Tunisia as well to meet with the Libyan Attorney General and civil society to discuss this very issue. So we are hoping our submission will pass over her desk in particular, because she has had first-hand experience of this matter, where an indication has been given that the crisis is deepening and that the ICC must look at this urgently as part of the Libya investigation. And we say it is only logical and makes entire sense for that investigation to extend over the border into Tunisia, because it is also a state party. It's equally serious. And it, from an evidentiary point of view, makes entire sense, given that a lot of the crimes are being committed in the border areas, regardless of whether there's even a border there. So to look at an investigation that covers both Libya and Tunisia is, from an investigative and prosecutorial point of view, the best way to proceed. Plus also it takes into account then the routes that persons often follow coming through, and we'll hear more about this from David, coming through Libya into Tunisia, along the coast, trying to get out that way, and making sure that you don't just look at part of the crime, but the continuum of it, particularly because it's going on ICC state party territory. So there are very compelling grounds from a prosecutorial point of view to extend this investigation without delay. These are all arguments we've made in the submission to the ICC prosecutor. I'm going to hand over to the speakers now, but of course we'll be here to answer questions from you here, and also those online will be able to send questions through as well, so please do so. And go to our first speaker today, Jaza Cherif, who is the son of the very well-known politician in Tunisia, Chaima Issa, who's been in the news extensively recently, and of course in the past as well, to talk about the situation that his mother has faced, but also many others in Tunisia, and also get his reflections on the current situation now, just days before the presidential election as well. Thank you for being with us.
Donc, I will speak in French.
Are you all okay with French, or shall we provide translation? Are you all okay?
I think it would be good if you do a translation. Maybe if you can do it in stages and then do a summary translation. Thank you.
Donc, bonjour à toutes et à tous. Je suis Jaza, fils de Chaima Issa, universitaire, militante des droits humains, membre du Front du Salut national, et première femme à avoir été incarcérée après la Révolution. Elle a passé 7 mois en prison avant d'être libérée le 16 juillet.
Hello everyone, I'm the son of Chaima Issa, academic, human rights campaigner, member of the National Salvation Front, and the first woman political prisoner after the revolution, who spent 5 months in prison before being released on the 13th of July.
Ma mère est toujours placée en assignation à domicile. Elle ne peut ni travailler, ni voyager, ni consulter son médecin, et elle doit avoir l'autorisation du juge. Elle est privée de ses droits comme citoyenne.
My mother is now under house arrest. She cannot work, she cannot travel, she cannot have access to the doctor. She needs a judge's permit for all those activities.
Avec toutes ces restrictions, elle ne peut pas reprendre son train de vie normal. La frustration et la peur à présent font partie de son quotidien.
She cannot return to normal life.
La frustration et la peur à présent.
She lives in fear and frustration because of all these restrictions.
Elle a été condamnée à 1 an de prison avec sursis par le tribunal militaire, qui l'a notamment reconnue coupable d'offense au président.
She has been sentenced to 1 year in prison by the military tribunal.
Sur la base des déclarations faites dans les médias. Cette condamnation est basée sur le décret 54 qui a été contesté par toute la classe politique et civile tunisienne.
She has been sentenced following statements on media under Decree 54, which is, a decree that restricts freedom of expression and which has been condemned by all civil society.
L'examen de l'affaire a été reporté au 10 octobre. Ma mère risque de se retrouver en prison encore une fois.
The case has been postponed to the 10th of October when she will appear before a judge and when she risks to be put back in prison.
En ce moment, en Tunisie, un climat de terreur est instauré, avec le recul des droits humains et l'espace civique qui se resserre de plus en plus.
In Tunisia, there is a climate of terror with the restrictions on freedoms and rights and all the restrictions on civil society.
Kais Saied semble déterminé à éliminer le rôle de la société civile, les partis politiques et les médias, à travers son discours populiste et haineux.
Kais Saied seems determined to eliminate the role of political parties, civil society, and the media through his populist and discourse of hate.
Et concernant l'élection présidentielle prévue le 6 octobre, la quasi-totalité des candidats ont été empêchés de se présenter.
Concerning the election set for 6th of October, the vast majority of candidates have been excluded from the race.
Deux ont été acceptés pour l'instant, mais l'un des deux a été aussitôt incarcéré.
Only 2 candidates, apart from the president, have been approved by the Electoral Commission, but one of those candidates has also been imprisoned.
Le 20 septembre, un projet d'amendement de la loi électorale a été proposé, qui prévoit de délester le tribunal administratif de son rôle d'arbitre aux élections.
On the 20th of September, a law draft was submitted in one of the commissions of Parliament to be adopted by Parliament. This law would remove the role of the administrative court from any role of oversight over the elections or the election results.
Cette étape représente une attaque flagrante contre les fondements de la démocratie, de la justice et de l'état de droit en Tunisie.
This step is a flagrant attack on justice and democracy in Tunisia.
Les principaux opposants sont soit en prison, soit à l'étranger, ou ont été invalidés pour l'élection.
The leaders of the opposition have all been either imprisoned, sent into exile, or excluded from being candidates in these elections.
L'élection va donc se dérouler dans un contexte d'inégalité juridique. L'ICC n'est plus une instance indépendante comme elle l'a été au moment de sa création.
So these elections will take place within complete inequality between candidates and will be overseen by a commission that is not independent.
Kais Saied mobilise la justice pour liquider ses opposants et porte un discours diabolisant les politiciens.
Kais Saied has turned the judiciary into a tool for repressing the opposition and demonizes all the political opposition.
Les militants de la société civile, les médias et les blogueurs sont soumis à la répression et à l'emprisonnement.
All activists in civil society and bloggers have been subjected to repression and restrictions.
Des dizaines de jeunes qui sont condamnés pour des années de prison juste parce qu'ils ont posté un tweet.
There are dozens of young people who have been sentenced to years in prison simply for posting something on social media.
Avec la dictature, il n'y aura que des défaites.
Under dictatorship, there can only be failure.
Tous ceux qui croient en les valeurs de la démocratie et de l'État, de liberté, doivent réagir pour mettre fin à cette dérive autoritaire.
All those who believe in the values of democracy and the rule of law must act to put an end to this democratic backsliding.
Un retour au régime inclusif démocratique et la libération de tous les prisonniers sont exigés.
a return to an inclusive political system and the release of all political prisoners are urgent demands. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jaza, for highlighting the extreme challenges that are facing those now in the run-up to the elections. It's also significant and worth highlighting that in the recent days, the deadline of 2 years for the government to address the African Court's findings that the current constitutional arrangements are in breach of the African Charter has now expired. They were given 2 years by the court, with the court finding that the measures taken by CAICED were unlawful under the African Charter to rectify that situation, and nothing has been done in those 2 years. So the system remains unlawful vis-a-vis the African Court, and in addition to that, steps are being taken now to close down any review of the elections independently within the country, and in addition to cracking down on criticism of those who might be wanting to express a different view, it's not even possible to do it through the local institutions any longer. That's very important, we say, because we've brought a number of cases at the African Court on human and people's rights in respect of these detentions, and are saying that there are no local remedies. We've exhausted all of those. None of them are effective. We have to go internationally to the African Court, and in the case of criminal responsibility, to the ICC, because there are no investigations and prosecutions of these criminal acts. It's only the International Criminal Court that can do this. Of course, Tunisia has an opportunity to take steps itself as a member state, but it's simply not doing that. It hasn't done it for the African Court. It's not doing it for the ICC. And therefore, we have to look at international intervention from those institutions now to secure justice. Our next speaker is Dr. Yusra Ghannouchi, who is the daughter of Rashid Ghannouchi, who is currently detained for a year and a half now, and facing so many different cases. As one goes on, another gets added, and also he's facing particular difficulties with getting access from lawyers and family. He was the Speaker of the Parliament when it was dissolved, widely regarded as a leader of the opposition. And we are very fortunate to be able to hear from Yusra today about the situation facing her father and so many in the country.
Thank you. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you all for coming today to bear witness to the testimonies that you'll hear about violations happening in Tunisia, both against the opposition, civil society, and sub-Saharan migrants in Tunisia. Some might wonder, these violations seem very different. Some are violations against migrants, depriving them of their rights and their dignity, and the violations against Tunisians who are sacrificing their freedoms to demand the restoration of democracy in Tunisia. But what brings these together is the fact that the cause is one and the perpetrator is one. The cause is dictatorship. The dictatorship that can never bring stability and prosperity as much as any would like to cling to these discredited illusions that they can work with strong men and enlightened dictators to bring stability to our region. So the cause is the same in both cases. So these violations are perpetuated by the same authoritarianism that can never bring stability and can only bring more misery, poverty, and further instability. It's the same dictatorship that is imprisoning hundreds of Tunisians simply for opposing the coup that has imposed itself since the 25th of July 2021, including some of the parents of those you will listen to today, including my father, Rashid Ghannouchi, the democratically elected Speaker of Parliament, the parliament that was dissolved as part of Qais Said's dismantling of Tunisia's democracy. My father has been imprisoned for 519 days, 1.5 years. And at the age of 83, he is the oldest political prisoner in the Arab world and perhaps in the whole world. He was a political prisoner under previous dictatorships in his 40s before the revolution. But sadly, he is back to the same situation with the return of dictatorship that Qais Said wants to entrench in Tunisia again. And in the case of migrants, the perpetrator is again the same dictatorship that is using migration to blackmail Europe to gain legitimacy and play a role as Europe's coast guard. So it is the same dictatorship, and we have come here repeatedly to reiterate the same message that this coup must be recognized as such, as a coup, and must be condemned loudly and explicitly and clearly. And if there is no return to democracy, then all we would see is not only restrictions on freedoms and rights and persecution of the opposition and of civil society, but also the worsening of the economy. Qais Said had promised that he will get rid of the cumbersome democratic institutions in order to deal with economic difficulties. But all we have seen, and this is what we have warned against, we have only seen the deterioration and near collapse of the economy, with the consequences in the rise in migrations, etc., and the dangerous consequences for Tunisians themselves and for Tunisia's neighbors and partners. So again, we continue to call on the international community to defend democracy and the values that it proclaims to believe in, the values of freedom and human rights and democracy, and to not grant Qais Said any support and legitimacy to continue to entrench his dictatorship. And this case is a test for these values and this legal system, and also these elections that Tunisia will see in 2 weeks' time will be a test for whether Qais Said will be allowed to disregard the will of Tunisians and rig these elections, as we have seen through control of the Electoral Commission, the exclusion of candidates, and the repression of the media, of the opposition and civil society, or whether we will see an international insistence on seeing free, or the minimum standards of free and fair elections in Tunisia that respect the will of the Tunisian people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think it's very important to emphasize that the groupings that are being represented in bringing forward this complaint to the ICC cover all the political parties in Tunisia across the spectrum. What is happening is that the current regime is not targeting one group or other, but all of those who are seeking to raise questions and challenge power in the country through democratic means. We were not able to have Ghazi Sharishi's son, Ilyas, here today, but he's another complainant in our case who is currently in detention as well, and was somebody who was seeking to run for presidential office, but was blocked entirely through sham procedural reasons. His son has provided a quote in the press release that we put out, and is happy also to be contacted if anybody does want to speak to him separately afterwards. Unfortunately, wasn't able to join us today. But going on to our headline speaker ready for today, David Yambio, who is a refugee human rights defender and the co-founder of Refugees in Libya, somebody who we've been liaising with extensively in relation to this complaint to the ICC, and who has one of the most extensive networks on the ground of contacts with migrants who are facing the wrath of the regime in Tunisia and other governments as well. He will provide an overview of that dire situation and also indicate what may be some of the ways of addressing this, what are the responsibilities of other states and international institutions like the ICC. He will also, at the end, play 2 recorded testimonies of migrants. They are anonymized, but they will discuss their situations. You'll give us a bit of background and context to that. That'll give you a flavor of the kind of materials that we've been able to gather and which we are providing. We've provided a lot already today, but we expect there will be more. And we will keep supplementing it with the ICC and keep looking to engage them to start an investigation as soon as possible. But David, thank you for coming to be with us today. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much. And also to the Tunisian comrades who in their everyday life are suffering just like the migrants. For us as refugees in Libya, one of the big questions should be, we are people who work in Libya. We started to struggle in Libya. Now, why Tunisia? The question why Tunisia is that the circle of violence, the circle of rejections, the chain of pushback that people face in the North African country does not only remain in Libya. People, once they are rejected in Libya, they go to Tunisia. Once they are rejected in Tunisia, they go to Morocco. And this chain of pushback have been happening. As a member of community and a community advocate, it was in our best interest in the last years to continue following these people and identify what is being done to them, because a number of them have been left to die, a number of them have been dumped in the desert. And looking at the current situation that the ICC is following on Libya, crimes against humanity have been committed, as well documented by the UN Independent Fact-Finding Mission. The report that was released last year in March, it was evident that the responsibility does not only lie in Libya, but also the European states, which then have extended to Tunisia, thanks to the popular remark that Kai Said made last year in February, which was a death sentence for most of the people who had come to Tunisia to work, to educate themselves, and those who were transiting through the territory in order to approach the European borders. What we have seen since July last year was the mass expulsions of people, which we have documented extensively. Children who died, they were not just numbers. These people have been identified. They were human beings. They were children who had dreams that was yet to be born. But these crimes, in the sense which we had tried to follow up, it's very challenging to witness what is happening in the desert, because they are doing it in a total darkness with a total level of impunity, knowing that no one is going to hold them accountable. The very few who have managed to survive, they reach in Libya, then they tell these stories. Those who manage to come back to Tunisia also tell these stories. Those who are repelled to the countries of origin are also able to tell these stories. With a few who are arriving recently to Europe, they also bear great witness to what have been done to them physically on their bodies or in the memories that they have managed to capture over the years. Now, with the extensive campaigns that Kai Said have carried out, thanks to the millions of money that European countries, to be precise, the Giorgia Meloni government, have allocated the money to them. Not only money, resources, weapons, the vehicles that are used in the desert, the uniforms that are financed are used by the national police to torture, to humiliate, to rape, and extort the women and men who are seeking protection throughout the territory. One of the things that amount to crimes against humanity is how Tunisia have pushed and isolated a huge population of over 16 different nationalities, ranging about 27,000, according to reports that we gathered in the last days between Jibnena, El Amra, and Safax. These people are completely left and they are living in concentration-like camps where women, if they are pregnant, they don't have access to primary health care. And most of these women, their pregnancy is thanks to the rape that the Tunisian police are committing and the Tunisian Turks, in which in every sense have become citizen militias throughout the country, things that have been incited by members of the Tunisian parliament. All these things as we try to document and to listen to the people, it's very alarming. The children who are born afterward in this process cannot survive longer because of the dust place that they live in, because of lack of medication, lack of clean drinking water. They suffer from several diseases. The population of young men who constantly try to move to navigate how to find food because they have been isolated completely are captured by the Tunisian authorities, dump them in the desert in the border region of Libya or Algeria. The ones who refuse in any way of resistance are then tortured and they are left to their injuries without any treatment. For people to access public health centers across Tunisia, it's something that we cannot imagine. It's non-existent. For them to take public transport, it's non-existent. For them to access any legal service, even receiving financial support from families who live abroad, is also prohibited. In most of the cases, their money are being confiscated from them. In what we have done so far is we tried to look at the Tunisian civil society. I'm grateful for them. That once they try to help, they are also captured, arrested, incarcerated, or harassed in many ways that they can no longer provide assistance to the people. Now the situation, to be much more specific, in the region of Safax and Alhambra is becoming an epidemic situation full of typhoid, malaria, cholera that is breaking to every tent that has been built under the olive trees. In this, we have alerted the authorities, but they don't care about it. We have tried to reach out to different institutions who are able to provide medical assistance, like MSF, IOM. Their services have been rendered to stop by the Tunisian authority. This is a clear evidence that what the Tunisian authority is doing is a crime against humanity. You cannot isolate an entire community without access to any livelihood. This is why I will not continue more. We will listen now to one of the people who are working every day, giving their lives, sacrificing whatever expertise that they have from their countries of origin to save lives on the ground. And one of them is the doctor in Safax. And the other is someone who have experienced last month the expulsions to the border where he was left and he was rescued thanks to the effort of the Tunisian civil society.
Which one is first?
Okay, Safax. It doesn't really.
And in charge in facts in all the kilometer. Just want to give my own testimony as a medical doctor that is going from kilometer to kilometer, trying to see how I can able to help my colleagues. I entered Tunisia this year, 2024 January, and I decided to come up with this idea to go around to help my brothers and sisters upon the situation that I've been seeing Migrant. As a medical doctor, it's my responsibility is to see how to save life and protect life. Due to the patient that I am treating around, because they have major weaknesses that I used to collect all the data, photos, and the videos that I have with me here whenever I am treating them with my colleagues, voluntary nurses that we are working. And we are here living in the mangrove trees that they abandoned us. Many of our sisters come and report themselves to us at the hospital because we just made a canopy with a plastic right round, try to form like an hospital where we can able to see sick people and pregnant women, suckling babies, and children. So many of these problems come onto us that we are raped. That's why they have this sexual transmitted disease we call STD. Many infections of the immune system. And the major problem, we could not be able to get any better machines. We only use the EPP machine and a stereoscope to check you. Moreover, our pregnant sisters don't have nowhere to deliver. If they move onto their own hospital to deliver, they will be taken out to the desert. They will be living there stranded. No water, no food. And they will not just leave them there. This police will go ahead and rape pregnant women again. They will rape our sisters that are not pregnant. They pregnate them and rape our sisters that are pregnant. When they have medical problems, they don't attend to them. We have abandoned children. Children that have been abandoned by their parents too because of this rape. You know, this lady, we are raped. And because of their rape, when they get pregnant and then deliver, they abandon those babies. They run away from them because they don't have no food, no water, even themselves as a mother, how to provide, how to sustain. If we are thinking about it, not less that having children again to take care of. Many of these abandoned children, they are seeking kwashi or ko. We also don't have food to provide for them. When our brothers and sisters go outside there to beg for food, to beg for water, they will then take them back to the desert. If they refuse, they will beat them mercilessly until they will lose one part of their body. If our brothers and sisters go in search of water, inside their garden, they will shoot them with live bullets. They beat our brothers in all sides and corners. They beat our sisters. They beat children, leave them stranded onto the street. Know them. They are Tunisian citizens who follow our brothers and sisters, rape them again, collect all that they have inside their hands, collect all their money, collect their phones, collect their food. If they refuse, they will cut any part they use to defend as property. If you point your hand, they will cut your hand. If you point your head, they will hit your head. If you point any part of your body, they will cut it. They will have no way to defend ourselves. If we go onto the pharmacies to buy these medicines, they'll help us to find a way to treat our brothers and our sisters. IOM, here, non-governmental usually come at to see how they can able to help us. So if I want to give my own testimony as a medical doctor, these are the problems that currently that we are going through. Disease are breaking up now. Epidemic like cholera, yellow fever, typhoid, measles, all of these sickness now. We have thousands of people that have been affected by all these things. And we don't have no attention from the government or any medical facilities except me and my team that is going from house to from canopy to canopy to see how we can able to help our brothers and sisters.
My name is Anderson Josh Kaba. I'm Sierra Leone, 24 years of age. I was staying in Tunis. I've been a victim of exploring migrants in the desert twice. The first one occurred in March when we were staying at the unofficial camp in Black End, close to IAM. Police clear us there, clear our tent, well, our property, take us to the desert. I spent more than 1 month there. I was fortunate again to make it and come back to Tunis. When I was in Tunis again, I go to Fax to do a business. I tried to wait till I get to Tunis to renew my asylum card because I'm an asylum seeker. The police catch me in Tunis with my wife. I showed them my asylum card. They refused to recognize it. They tied my hand behind my back. They beat me mercilessly like I'm a thief. They put us inside the car. They tied my woman in the front of her, whilst they tied behind my back. This happened on the 15th of August, 2024. They take us to the bus where I met a lot of African people from different nationality. All the men, their hands were tied behind the back. All the females, their hands were tied in front of them. They beat us very mercilessly, take us to the border between Algeria and Tunisia. They drop us down that place, search us, take all our phone. But I was very lucky. I keep my phone very well, that they cannot able to see it. They take all my colleagues' phones, take our power bank, take our food, no water, nothing. Take us to the desert. We spent almost 2 weeks in the desert. We lost some people, 2 to 3 people who was from different nationality. I don't know them especially. It's so good. My phone was having some percentage of charging. I was able to contact my friend. I explained to him my situation. He was able to come to my rescue and inform another organization, humanitarian organization, Human Rights Watch, and Libya refugee. But so good, these people were so kind. They came together with their efforts, with their energy. We were able to rescue from the desert. When they rescued us from the desert, they hand over us again to the police. The police take us to the police station and take all of us, our fingerprint, and snap us. And they take us again to another police headquarters. Where again, they search us again. They take some people money, some people charger, even if they see charger, even if they see any value from you, they take it from you. From there again, IOM send us bus, they lead us from the bus. They come with us in the shelter at Tatawin. Why women they live there in Medni. So this is our present situation. We are very vulnerable. We are scared to go out. We are scared to work. We don't know what to do. And so for some of us, we cannot go back home because of what we have been through. We are traumatized. We are going through a lot. We are vulnerable here right now. We can't work. We can't do anything for ourselves. We're just here sitting, hoping that one day things will get better. All we can do right now is hope and trust in God and see how things are going to change for better. But it's not really, really easy for us right now because we are scared. We know these police, they're very intimidated. They intimidate a lot of Black people, a lot of migrants, a lot of different people from different nationality. It's not really easy with us right now here. We need help. We need people to stand for our rights. As a migrant, our rights of movement, we have freedom of movement. We have to be treated with kind and respect because we are human too. Some of us, they just tell us like this because they don't know what we have been through. They don't know our story. So most people just think that all migrants they are criminals, they are thieves, they are these. It's not all situation migrant thieves who are criminals. There are migrants out there who are facing a lot. We are going through a lot. People need to sit down with them and talk to them so that they can know their story and know their problem, so they can know how they can solve and help and be part of the solution, not part of the problem. We need help. We need support from the international community, from every partner that is involved in protecting the right of migrants and protecting human rights. This is all what I have to say for now. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, David, both for exposing the sheer desperation that countless migrants face, but also, as we could hear, the very courageous work that you are undertaking, and the hope that you give so many, hoping that will transpose to states that you've mentioned, but also international institutions like the ICC. The ICC coming out and making a strong statement about this and starting an investigation would send a very clear signal to those who are involved in this crackdown that it cannot be countenanced, that something is going to be done about it. And there is the chance then of some deterrence, but then also bringing justice to those people who are suffering. I'm sure they want more than anything help on a daily basis to survive, but then also seeing those who are doing this brought to court. I mean, the survival aspect is so much more important, but the ICC acting is not a theoretical exercise. It can help in that process of making sure people are aided in the plight that they face. So thank you so much again for all of the work that you've done, for the materials that you've provided. We've listened to countless of these kinds of interviews. They've been handed to the ICC, but what we're really hoping is that will form the basis of a proper investigation. The ICC will have to do that investigation themselves, but they have plenty of leads now. Also, as we've highlighted in our press release, the UN itself, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Türk, said at the beginning of July this year that it was revealed that there was a discovery of a mass grave in the desert on the Libya-Tunisia border. That would be prime material for the ICC, which has access to both of those countries as member states. We're not talking here of a country like Russia that is not signed up. These are signed up member states. The prosecution could go there to find that mass grave, find out what it's about, and get that evidence firsthand to use in the investigation. But it would also show those people who are doing this that this is not just going to be forgotten literally in the desert. I mean, that's what they're hoping, that they can completely get away with it, act with impunity. Because the eyes of the world are elsewhere, or they just trying to prop up the current regime. And continue gathering this testimony and inform. So, in detention, and has been there for some time with a number of serious health problems that haven't been addressed, allegations, but with no concrete charges. So we are grateful to hear from her about her father's situation, but also about everything that has been revealed today.
Who's here and as Rodney said, my name is Volker Perjeni. I'm the daughter of Said Perjeni, who's been afflicted in school prisoner for the second time round for the last 5. I think many of us have
thought it would never happen to us again. We had makers who were making sure ship again on the in the 10 years of revolution, and in fact not only accepted but welcomed parliament, that scrutiny no longer existed. My father's been a lifelong human rights activist, even during his years in exile in Tunisia. And in fact, when we did have the coup, my father, as well as other politicians, did sound the alarm to the international community that we will be sliding back to a dictatorship. And unfortunately, no one was paying attention. We have the reason why we're here in the ICC is because we have exhausted all options. We have tried to seek justice in Tunisia, but that's not possible. For instance, my father has a bogus charge of being part of a digital media company. His particular case, there's tens of people that are involved in his case. None of them are connected to each other, yet they still have the same court date, the same court case, and they appear together, but each one is accused of something different and each one has no connection to the other. In fact, recently, even the head of the digital media company surrendered himself and said that he has no connection to anyone that has been accused of being connected to the Interlingo media company. But unfortunately, the judges haven't taken that into consideration, to the point where even my dad's particular court case has been closed. They've made sure that I think it's the only closed case where even tanks have been outside. They don't let anyone take pictures, and they haven't let any media attend his court case. As Rodney said, not only have we exhausted it in Tunisia, but we have tried to start with Africa first. We currently have a case in the African court, but also there was a case that in 2022 where the decision was made that Tunisia had to return back to democracy. They had 2 years to do this, and I think it just expired 2 days ago. And you can see that Tunisia has not been committed to honor the decision. Currently the conditions for my father and other prisoners, they are getting worse. For instance, my father's medical conditions haven't been dealt with. He sometimes says no to going to the hospital because the way they take him is they take him in a van where he has to stand up with nothing holding him. He can't fully stand up because it's too short for him, and he can't sit down. Sometimes they will even take him to a different court 2.5 hours away, standing like that. And my dad is 70 years old. He has ailments from torture in the 80s, 2.5 hours back, where ended up you could fall, and that's how they taking him to the hospital because we complaining for him what they found there for the last few weeks. Even his lawyers have asked about his medical files, they haven't been giving it to them. So while sometimes the conditions improve, they go back to how they were. So yeah, I'm sorry. We've been doing this for a while and kind of repeating the same thing about what we're asking, and I think it's just best to leave it to end this with a letter from my father, literally probably a couple of days after he was arrested 575 days ago. He says, "To the free people of the world, we must not feel a false sense of assurance that dictatorship will not return at any moment. Despotism has no moral, no morals and no justice, and does not recognize any rights. Rather, it sees itself as the nation, as the state. Free people such as myself refuse to accept such a thing, even if they have to sacrifice their lives. The free world must stand by innocent free people while being accused of conspiracy. I reject this system and this equation that the coup and the coup leader wish to impose and turn it into a fait accompli with the help of what he calls honorable judges and faithful citizens, who are nothing but a weapon used against innocent free people in this country. We call on all free people around the world and believers in human rights and democracy to take a clear stance against oppressive authoritarianism and heinous racism, and with the democracy and human rights. And he signs it off, Said Bajani, Member of Parliament, political prisoner. So yeah, I thought it's best to end it there.
Very appropriate. Thank you so much. And it is true. We have been saying these things over and over again, but have to keep doing it. And now I have an opportunity with all of this new evidence as well to take it to a new level, to say to the ICC that they can't keep ignoring this. They have to look at this together with all the other things on the docket, but this one has to be included. I just have one or two more comments to make, and then we'll turn over to questions. I have had a few sent through from those following. There might be some more there, and of course those here to ask questions as well. 2 points I wanted to highlight, though, is one, from a legal point of view, and I've been asked this a few times, this isn't really about the application of asylum law or refugee law. Of course, that should always be applied properly. But it's not merely a violation, or not that that's only merely, but it's not merely a violation of those laws, but it's a violation of international criminal law, because these acts of murder and torture and rape on a widespread and systematic basis amount to crimes against humanity. And that's what gives the court jurisdiction. This is not a matter where the court can say, oh, well, this is really an asylum matter which should be dealt with in the country or elsewhere. No, it's a matter which has risen to the level of the attention of the ICC because of the severity and brutality of the attacks, how widespread they are, the fact that they're occurring in so many similar ways, both in Libya, then on the border, and then in Tunisia as well, and in other places as well, but for the ICC's jurisdiction in those two countries, which should be looked at together. And then lastly, just in terms of the alleged perpetrators, of course, the ICC has a wide ambit to look at anyone who's potentially responsible. But we have drawn the attention of the prosecutor to a number of high-ranking individuals and explained what their role is, what their responsibilities are, both for implementing this policy, also overseeing it, and their command responsibility for not, at the very least, interfering and stopping it and doing something about it. And that includes the current president, Kais Saied, the former Interior Minister, Shafiddin, the current Interior Minister, Kamal Feki, the Justice Minister, Jafal, the Defense Minister, Memich, and very importantly, the heads of both of the Army and the National Guard, who it is alleged from the evidence we've got and many others have got, are responsible for these rounding up operations, the expulsions, the mistreatment, and the ways in which people, both in the camps but elsewhere in the country, are abused and mistreated. Of course, it's for the office of the prosecutor to look at all of these persons and anyone else that is responsible. The ICC will focus on those at the highest level who are most responsible, and that's what we urge them to do, to look at it from the ground up to those who are in charge of this. Questions then, and any further comments can be made from the panelists then. I'll start here and then I'll turn over to those online. Anyone here to kick off, or should I go with the question online first? Okay, I'll do one to you, David. I'll read it out in full. The Guardian newspaper reported that Joseph Borrell, the EU's chief diplomat responsible for foreign affairs, was well aware of the Tunisian government's poor human rights track record, and was in fact using it to justify his autocratic takeover of Tunisian democracy. However, one of the reasons Borrell cited for not upholding the EU's policy of human rights was the need to use the Tunisian government to help in the migration policy. Do you feel that this is justified, and has it worked?
Well, I think this question, since it's a bit political or not political, everything in our lives has migrant, because even though I live in Europe, I still consider myself a migrant as long as I continue to receive those horrible situations in those countries of transit. In regard to this comparison, if it's justified or if it worked out, I don't think it's justified. It shouldn't be justified. First, we look at the consequences that these policies have brought, this agreement has brought upon. So it hasn't worked out. If it ever worked out, it has only killed the thousands of people that we have numbered here, those who have been forced to drown on the Mediterranean or intentionally killed during their being dumped in the desert. This is what I would say.
Yes, I also think it's important that the ICC take up this case, as often happens in many of these situations, to provide a leading light for the key political institutions like the EU as to what the evidence shows is unlawful. Because yes, you highlight rightly, it's a political matter, but what the ICC does is forensic. They look at the evidence, and if they can provide that to the politicians, then they have to take it seriously. If no one is investigating it independently and objectively, it's easier for those at the political level to ignore the realities. But I think a proper objective forensic investigation would allow that evidence to be there, so it could not be ignored. Are there any other comments on that question? I've got another one here then for Yusra. Do you see the elections going ahead in Tunisia? Do you think the international community has been sufficiently involved in helping the democratic processes in Tunisia, particularly in relation to the upcoming elections? More a political question again, of course, if you want to answer it.
As you may have read, if you've been following the developments in Tunisia, Kais Saied has done everything possible to ensure that he is re-elected and that these elections will not be in any way free and fair, from dissolving the previous independent electoral commission that used to be elected by parliament to appointing his own electoral commission, to imprisoning anyone who might, who expresses any intention to stand as a candidate, and prosecuting others, to the Electoral Commission ignoring the final and binding ruling of the Administrative Court to reinstate 3 candidates that had been excluded by the Electoral Commission, to imprisoning one of the 2 other candidates than Kais Saied himself. And now he has put forward this law draft to, as Jaza mentioned, to exclude the Administrative Court from any role of oversight over the elections. The same Administrative Court that ruled to reinstate the excluded candidates, which could be resorted to challenge any rigging of the elections or falsification of the results. So there is a law now in Kais Saied's parliament to vote for this law draft, to controlling the media, so many examples. So we can see that these presidential elections will be very different from the elections that brought Kais Saied to power in 2019, that had been free and fair, and all the other elections we saw since 2011. They will not be free and fair. However, the opposition and civil society in Tunisia are doing all they can. They have not given up. We have seen protests. We have seen these challenges through the court. They have managed to, include at least one candidate who is critical of the coup. and who is promising, a repeal of the unconstitutional decrees. They are trying to include observers, but so far they have been rejected by this unindependent electoral commission. So we see everything being done to try and engage in these elections as one possible method of change and restoring democracy. But seeing, the conditions that we see now, it's very unlikely that they will be free and fair. Whether the international community and Europe has done enough to engage in these elections, I think it started long before these elections. Since the coup, it has taken Kais Saied many steps to reach this level of control, from dissolving parliament to dissolving the Supreme Judicial Council to taking control of the judiciary, dissolving all the democratic institutions. And all those steps were not condemned clearly and strongly and explicitly enough by the international community. We have only seen timid expressions of concern that were obviously ignored by Kais Saied, and on the other hand, we have only seen continuation of support for Kais Saied and recognition of his illegal regime. So we still hope that these elections will be watched closely, and that if there is any falsification of results, they will be recognized as illegitimate, and we hope we will not see any continuation of this support for Kais Saied's destruction of Tunisian democracy.
Thank you. Another question here for Kauthar. People have been talking about the rolling back of democracy by President Kais Saied, and that the European Union still has not recognized this as a coup in Tunisia. What could the international community do now?
Well, first of all, we need the international community to unequivocally condemn what's happening in Tunisia, the crimes, and we don't mean just verbally, but in actions as well. The EU has essentially been aiding and abetting the crimes that have been happening in Tunisia, not just the political crackdown, but the heinous and horrific abuse of African migrants in our country. So first and foremost, it would be stop funding the very same people that are carrying out, and it's exactly the same people. It's the security forces that are currently being funded to abuse the African migrants and to crack down on all political dissent in Tunisia. The other thing is we have filed in the EU, the UK, and the US for targeted sanctions against the very same people that have been responsible for what's been happening in the political situation and the African migrant situation. And so we would want them to impose those sanctions on the Interior Minister, Kais Saied, the Minister of Defense, and especially the Minister of Justice. And so I think with those three steps, Kais and his current coup regime would find itself quite isolated and more unpopular than it already is.
Right. A question to myself. I think this has been foreshadowed by your answer. In your submission that you have made today, are you expecting that this will change EU policy in any way towards Tunisia? Maybe sanctions until these human rights abuses are perhaps stopped? Well, as has been explained, we have applied for sanctions already. We still haven't had any action in regard to that. We continue to engage with the EU on this and the other bodies as well. And we'll certainly be looking to add the further evidence on the migrants' situation to that, because that is a fairly straightforward step. If you can get agreement between all of the states, that could be taken to at least impose those sanctions on individual leaders in Tunisia. And it's happened in a lot of countries, particularly recently in relation to the Russian conflict, Ukraine, China as well. The EU has acted fairly swiftly and laid down a marker that these persons cannot conduct business as usual. You can't keep transferring money in Europe, traveling here, conducting business in the usual way. It's not full justice, but it's a measure of justice to try and ensure that pressure is put on those concerned, and it highlights the problem very, very publicly. So we will renew that, but are also hoping that the ICC will act. These are not mutually exclusive. Sanctions can be imposed on individuals to stop them traveling, but then they can also be investigated, as they should be, for the crimes that they are committing. And the African court, as we've said, can be looking at the responsibility of the government as a whole. So these shouldn't be used by anyone to say, well, the EU can look at it, or the ICC can look at it, or the African court. I sometimes hear that. No, they all have their respective jurisdiction, and they should all be acting together, as they've done in many other situations around the world, and rightly so, to focus their attention on the perpetration of this at all levels. What we are saying is that Tunisia should be brought up to that level. It can't be left behind. We're not trying to compare situations. It's not a competition. But where there's such egregious violations going on, these bodies should all act and not just select a few cases. They have to do as many as possible. And this surely, we say, now comes within the ambit of the court's reach. Yes.
I have two questions, actually, if I can. Okay.
Yes. I'm just looking for other questions, sorry.
Yeah. Margherita Capaci, freelance journalist. And the first question was about like figures. And I was wondering how many migrants you think fall under the crimes against humanity. I heard that 27,000 from David, but I wanted to check what that number is for, and also if I can know how many statements you've collected.
Yes. You want to answer that first?
She had two questions.
Yes. Are those other questions, or is there another one?
No, there is another one.
Okay, do them. We can do them all together. Yes.
Yes, yeah. Since I'm writing for an Italian paper today, I was wondering, because I know you've reached out to several governments.
Yes.
I was wondering if you tried and like reach out to the Italian government, or if you had any meetings, and what was the response there?
Okay.
Do you want to start? Yes.
Okay, we'll start concerning the figure. A country like Tunisia, where the freedom of movement is entirely non-existent almost for the Black people. It's been difficult to conduct, deterring to know how many people are there, how many are women, how many are pregnant, how many are children, how many are unaccompanied. So what we managed in the last months is to look at the Jimnena, Lamra, and Safax region, where a larger number of people have been isolated that I was speaking about. So in this place, we have identified more than 27,000 people from 16 different nationalities. Most of them also coming lately from the conflict in Sudan. The figure of women amounts to more than 7,000. These are women alone, and then children are more than 2,000 in these just small regions. And then for unaccompanied children, whose parents probably have been dumped in the desert and separated, there are more than 500. And then the pregnant women that we managed to identify are also more than 400. With almost 25% of them who have been raped by the police or by the Tunisian thugs. The second question, was it to me? Should I address it or?
Statements I will answer, but on Italy, do you want to answer that.
Yeah. So we've had meetings with Italian MEPs and other levels, but not with the Italian Foreign Ministry or governments. But you know, we do feel that unfortunately Italy has been providing the greatest both financial and symbolic and political support for Kais Said's regime, and that this is very unfortunate and irresponsible and short-sighted on the part of Italy, because looking at Tunisia only from the angle of migration is very short-sighted, and this problem itself has clearly deteriorated and got worse under Kais Said and his mismanagement of everything in Tunisia, from the economy to security to politics, etc. And that we must go to the roots of the problem rather than reward the cause of the deterioration of this problem.
With regard to the figures, a lot of those that have been publicized and verified, we've provided to the ICC, including that the UN has said that they estimate that over 2,400 people are missing or have died trying to get across, and that would cover the border areas as well. But those are precisely the details that we're asking the prosecutor to investigate. I mean, the figures are there, they are verifiable. They certainly reach the threshold of crimes against humanity on their face. They require further investigation, but that's the whole purpose of asking for the investigation, is to ensure that that is undertaken in a proper forensic way. I mean, it's obviously happening through the work that people like David are doing, a phenomenal work, but it needs to be broadened out so that it has the label of an international investigation and all the powers that involves to gather it, and the resources behind it as well. So we've referred to a lot of testimonies that are out there already, and some new ones and some confidential ones. We are in the process of gathering more as well. As I explained earlier, we don't have formal witness statements. That'll be for the ICC to undertake, but we have a lot of recordings, and if you take those together with a whole range of other testimonies, we have at least over 20 which have been provided, and which we have deliberately got together in order to cover the different kinds of crimes that are being committed, of torture, ill treatment, then the expulsions, deportations out of the country as well, sexual violence, violence against children, and then people also being attacked when they're trying to leave. So there are a number of themes that we have highlighted to show the full range of crimes that amount to crimes against humanity and persecution, and looked at gathering first-hand evidence from a number of persons in each of those, recognizing that there's a lot more, and also having to face some of the difficulties of simply not being able to get access to persons, or when we do, they're not being prepared very often to provide testimony because of fears of security. So we've had to balance all of those factors and get the best possible evidence together, but that'll be for the prosecution to take forward and investigate, is our main thrust now. Anything else on Italy or figures? Any other questions? Do we have any more online? I think we've probably exhausted it, but anything else here? Well, thank you to everyone, particularly the speakers, for coming today, and to all of you and those following online as well, and for all of your support. I mean, it is so vital now. The ICC's preamble talks about ending impunity around the world, and surely that must apply to those who are in the most vulnerable situation, if at all. So it's the ICC's very mandate that we are calling on it to implement now.
Yes, maybe one more question.
Yes, final question.
I'm working for Volkskrant, the Dutch newspaper. I would like to ask if the ICC will respond to your complaints. When will this happen? Does it usually take weeks or months, or how long are you expecting to wait for an answer?
Yeah, it's very difficult to tell because it depends on the ICC now and everything that is going on there. When we filed this, we've asked to meet with the ICC prosecutor on this and to explain it in more detail and make available also some of those persons who gave evidence or collected the evidence and the reports that are out there. So we are going to stick on that and hoping to be able to meet soon and engage soon so that we can then look at what the timetable will be, whether further materials should be given or whether the ICC will be ready to take this on. It's one of the drawbacks of the ICC process is there is no deadline for deciding on these matters. Unlike in national jurisdictions where, very often the police have to look at something and come back to you as the victim fairly rapidly. But there isn't any deadline. It largely depends on the ICC's agenda and then on us being able to engage and look to bring it to a point where a decision will be made. And then, of course, as well, to the attention that is given to this. That's why it's so important, and we've made it public having this press conference because that will also ensure that the ICC knows that it should be high on the agenda.
On this, I would add very short remark also to the ICC, perhaps an invitation that they have to acknowledge our hopes, as we heard from Anderson, that we are only hoping. I'm a person who have survived the crimes against humanity in Libya, and the people who we are talking about now in Tunisia are the same people who face the same chain and circle of crimes against humanity. It's only another call to the ICC to really pull up and to make an equal recognition to the pain that are being inflicted on the people around the world, not to prioritize certain places. In the instance of Libya, it has been a country that has been under war without any recognized government. Yet the prosecutor himself have traveled to Libya, meet with some of the alleged perpetrators. And for Tunisia, we wish that tomorrow they will take a flight, go there with all the power that they have, their relation to the EU authorities, who is in full communication and engagement with the Tunisian authority, and to also be able to initiate an immediate independent fact-finding mission on Tunisia to inquire about the situation.
That's the perfect way to end it. Thank you very much, David, and thank you to all of you.
Thank you.